Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today we are learning about Orchard Production 101. And if you're just finding me, thank you for joining me today. This is my 10th, I'm going through a Master Gardener program. This is my 10th week or video. So if you're interested in grass or bugs, soil, anything like that, if you're a farmer or just a regular gardener, go back and check my previous videos. And if you like them, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer if I can. If not, I'll look it up for you. But let's get right into it. So, orchard is things that make you go, So, it's very important to establish the site selection and to prepare it. The success of an orchard is only as good as the planting, as the The success of an orchard is only as good as the planning and site preparation that go into it. This is as simple as saying, but one that is often overlooked by beginner and experienced grower alike. And what do you think that we're going to say? Probably soil tests, right? Orchard establishment, site selection, preparation. Shortcuts and haphazard approaches can result in less than ideal growth and other problems during the orchard's life. Plan ahead. It is easier to amend a site before the tree is planted than it is once they are in the ground. Slope exposure should be considered for its effect on fruit trees as they come out of dormancy. A southern facing slope warms up faster in spring, while the opposite is true of a northern slope. Eastern-facing slopes are intermediate. In mid-Atlantic areas, a western-facing slope tends to be windier. Wind can cause spraying problems during the growing season. The ideal site has 4 to 8% slope. It may be difficult to operate machinery on slopes more than 10%. Selecting a site for an orchard involves below-ground considerations as well, primarily soil depth and soil texture. Soil drainage is probably the most important factor in the longevity of an orchard. This is because the inherent inability of certain types of fruit trees to survive when planted in imperfectly drained soils. Stone fruits like peaches and cherries, plums, they have the core, like the pit in there, are the most susceptible to poor drainage. Apples are intermediate, and pears can survive the more poorly drained soil. Then the amount of organic matter in soil is an important factor in soil structure. If you see, a lot of this has common ground, common factors like organic matter is very important. Organic matter consists of dead and decomposing plant and animal parts. Living organisms like earthworms break down plant debris into organic matter. Before selecting a site for an orchard, consult a county soil map. Soil surveys are available at most natural resource conservation services offices in Tennessee, or you can go to this website. This information is valuable in determining if your particular site has the detailed requirements for long-term viable orchard operation. And like I said, if you're from a different country or any other state, they will provide the same information. Depending on which state you are, obviously. Not Tennessee if you're not from here, but you get the idea. pH and fertility are often considered important factors for orchard soils. Soil fertility can often be corrected by applying fertilizer or by increasing the level of organic matter in the soil. Soil pH can be corrected and is not usually a limited factor unless the site is highly acidic, like blueberries. They really like acidic soil. In this case, the plow layer depth can be corrected with applications of lime. Fruit orchards do not need a highly fertile soil. The best soil is well-drained loam, a minimum of 3 to 4 feet deep. Good drainage, however, should take preference over depth. Soil fertility should be medium to low. Over-fertile soil can lead to excessive tree growth at the expense of fruit production. Fruit trees grow well in soil with a pH of 6.0, 6.75, which is acidic. Higher or lower levels can cause nutrient deficiencies. And then once you have selected a site, you must prepare it. If you are replacing an existing orchard, particularly a stone fruit orchard, it is important to take a nematode test before the old trees are removed to determine the need for fumigation. Next, take a soil test to determine soil fertility. The University of Tennessee, or whatever university or whatever establishment, will provide a soil testing service through the lab for free, and you can contact them at that website or by calling that number. Examine the field for the presence of perennial weeds before working the ground. If multiflora rose, thistle, poison ivy, or hackberry are in the field, they should be treated in the summer or fall with a non-selective herbicide. If the problem weeds have been established for a number of years, controlling them will require 2 or 3 treatments of non-selective herbicide. Non-chemical controls would include tillage and planting cover crops to build soil structure of the soil so that sunlight does not reach weed seeds, solarization, etc. Running a deep shank in 2 directions access the fields will break up any existing hard pans. Cover crops have other benefits that are more widely applicable in a range of cropping systems, and they offer long-term return. The major ones: improvements in soil tills, increased water infiltration, and better soil fertility. These 3 benefits often interact. For example, cover crop roots encourage the growth of soil microbes, which produce substances that increase soil aggregation, which is in turn leads to improved water infiltration. Other cover crops options are crimson clover, annual rye, barley, mustard greens, and radish. And here's some rye, some beautiful crimson clover. I'm thinking about planting that just for some ground cover. Plow down any stubble left from field crop in late summer to incorporate soil organic matter. Soil test and incorporate any needed amendments such as lime, phosphorus, or potassium. Fruit trees, nut trees, and grapevines may be purchased as bare root or containerized plants. Most of the time, the plants that are available are bare root. That is, they were field grown, dug, and chipped with most material wrapped around the roots to keep them from drying out. Like ball and burlap. When properly managed, bare root plants will perform as well as, or possibly better than those grown in a container. They're usually less expensive too. For apple and pear trees, consider selecting trees that are 4 to 6 feet high, 3/8 to 5/8 inch caliper, and have no side branches. Stone fruit trees typically side branch in the nursery. Ideally, these branches should be removed at planting. Select trees in the 24 to 30 inch size range. If this size is unavailable, try to get trees from either the next larger size or the next smaller size. Nut trees larger than 6 to 8 feet in height are not recommended, with the exception of V. vinifera varieties. Most grapevines are propagated as root cuttings. 1-year-old field-grown plants are suggested. When purchasing new plants, always use a reputable nursery to assure getting healthy plants of the correct variety. Fall planting poses the risk of plant injury due to severe weather, cold, which may occur some years. Planting about 1 month or longer prior to the time that growth would start will allow the root system to become established and generally result in better plant growth in the first year. Planting later then late winter or early spring raises some problems. Pollination requirements for various fruits. A pollinizer is a plant that provides the pollen to the flowers of a different plant variety. In most instances, bees are the agents that transfer the pollen, thus referred to as pollinators. Little or no pollination occurs as a result of wind movement. And kind of going like to biology, we'll go into this, but there's like the pollen, the single ovary, and it goes down, and that's where the seed starts. Most fruit crops benefit from cross pollination. Some crop varieties require cross-pollinations like apples, blueberries, cherries, kiwis, persimmons, sunflowers, cranberries, and hemp. Aggregate and accessory fruits, multiple ovaries and visits. Blackberry, strawberry, and raspberry. Self-fertile plants, cross-pollination improves size and shape. So many cranberries and raspberries, blackberries, black raspberries, etc. And this is kind of how bees, they kind of like go back and forth. Bees tend to move down rows best to interplant pollinizers. In this orchard layout, pollinators are interplanted. To be an effective pollinizer, a variety must have bloom period that overlaps that of the variety to be pollinated, produce viable pollen, and be grown in close proximity to the variety to be pollinated. Insects pollinated fruit are apples, crabapples, pears, serviceberry, and quince. Cranberries, raspberries, blackberries, black raspberries, peach plum, strawberry, blueberry, and cranberry. This is making me hungry. Cross-pollination, like we just said, apples, blueberries, cherries, kiwi, persimmons, cranberries require two or more varieties that cross-pollinate. Self-fertile plants cross-pollination will still improve size and shape of fruit. Cranberries or brambles, raspberries, blackberries. The best time to plan for pollination is when you order your plants. Most nurseries have charts or tables recommending varieties that will serve as pollinizers for each other. Several environmental factors affect pollination. Temperature below 55 to 60 reduce bee flight and activity, as do windy conditions. Temperatures above 85 to 90 dry the flower's stigmatic surface and prevent pollen grains from germinating. Finally, applying insecticides during bloom can harm bees or other pollinating insects. Planting. Holes or trenches should be dug and soil amendments added well before planting. Immediately prior to planting, trees and vines need to be removed from the shipping packages or from the trench in which they were healed. The root systems should never be allowed to dry out because exposure of roots to air, even for a short time, can damage them. To protect the roots from drying out, immerse them in a bucket of water and then take them in the bucket to the planting pile. Time of planting. Dormant fruit trees can be planted in spring as soon as the ground can be worked without fear of damaging soil structure. The hole in which each tree is to be planted should be wide enough to accommodate all of the tree's root systems without excessive bending or bunching of the roots. And then we'll get into spacing. Trees must be spaced so they get plenty of sun and allow for air circulation to prevent fungal issues. If you have robust soil, a little extra spacing should be given since the tree will grow out wider. These are three sizes of trees: standard, semi-dwarf, and dwarf. Standards are the largest. Standard trees will grow maturity to 18 to 25 feet, and then semi-dwarf will reach 12 to 15 feet. Standard apple trees need 30 to 35 feet between trees, while semi-dwarf trees require 15 feet and dwarf apples only need 10 feet. Peach trees should be spaced 20 feet apart, and then standard pears need about 20 feet apart, and semi-dwarf pears need 15 feet between the trees. Plum trees 15 feet apart. Sweet cherries need quite a bit of room and should be spaced about 30 feet apart. Watering the young tree in late June may be desirable depending on the rainfall up to that time. After the water has moved into the soil, add a tree guard to help protect them from voles, deer, and other critters. If you carefully choose the kinds of cultivars or varieties of a fruit before you plant, you can harvest dessert quality fruit from early summer through the fall. When choosing cultivars, look for those with outstanding hardiness, disease resistant, and fruit quality. Many of the newer cultivars provide top quality fruits not often available in local markets. For example, try growing the disease resistant apple cultivar Liberty rather than the most apple scab susceptible McIntosh. Cultivars also need to be winter hardy in your area, like the USDA zone. Strawberries, varieties for annual hill plasticulture. That's what that is. A lot of straw people do that around here. And then pruning. You can see before pruning, after pruning, pruning and training apple trees. Semi-dwarf apple trees are trained to a central leader system. In this system, the trunk known as a central leader is straight with the layers of side branches grown off of it. This is really important, y'all. At planting, as the buds begin to swell, head the tree at 30 to 34 inches above the soil surface. So you want it to grow like a vase. Dormant pruning, head the tree 24 to 34 inches above the highest branch of the first scaffold whorl. And then after pruning the third year, 3 scaffold whorls have been developed with 3 to 4 branches uniformly spaced around the tree in each whorl. A slot of 18 to 24 inches is left between each scaffold whorl. Note, like a Christmas tree shape. That's what you want. And then steps in pruning. Leave only one trunk for the central leader. Remove branches with crotched angles less than 60 degrees. Remove all branches directly across from one another on the leader. And then space lateral branches uniformly around the leader to prevent crowding as the limbs grow in diameter. And like there, that's a good cut. After the new vegetative growth has reached 3 to 4 inches in length, summer pruning should begin. The first step is to select one upright shoot near the top of the tree to be the leader. After selecting the leader shoot, remove all other competing shoots for approximately 4 inches below it. Rehead the tree above the leader. So here's what the second season would look like, third, fourth, and fifth or sixth. A young orchard tree should be summer trained and pruned once a month through July to remove unwanted growth and to properly orient young branches. Pruning and training stone fruits. Peach, nectarine, plum, and tart cherry should be trained to the open center system. This form resembles the shape of a vase. 3 or 4 side limbs, well spaced around the trunk, should be developed at about 18 to 24 inches above ground. Any vigorous shoots that compete with it should be removed. And that's what it would look like. On the left, a well-branched peach tree to be trained to an open center system. And then on the right, they're going to cut off that central leader. That way they'll have 3 or maybe 4 side branches. So it says 3 to 5 well-spaced scaffolds or scaffold side branches are selected, and the tree is headed above the highest scaffold. And that's what it's going to look like. Training, I know it can be kind of like, oh my gosh, but tree after heading branches lower than 24 inches are also removed. Top view of uniformly spaced scaffold. Kind of has like a star pattern. And then there's red eye versus high bush. I believe these are blueberries, maybe. Not as sensitive to soil types, more heat and drought tolerant, loses less water through transpiration, deeper rooted. And then there's high bush, or northern varieties, more winter hardy, less prone to frost damage, ripens earlier, more concentrated harvest season. And then, yeah, these are the blueberry varieties. Sadly, blueberries got the best of me this year, but I might try them again. I think I just did soil compost and a few amendments, and I don't think my soil was acidic enough, so I think that was the problem. I grew the Patriots, which are high bush. They have large fruit, and they're an attractive plant. But there's a lot of different varieties. I still have my 2 blueberries, my 2 strawberries, and 2 raspberry bushes. They're still doing good. And then here's like a preparation. Obviously, you're -1 if you're going to prepare the site. And then year 1 and 2, you do fruit. And then third year is when you can yield the crop. And then, like I just said, soils for blueberries, they like 5.0 to 5.2, very acidic soil. And here are some diseases, or what they would look like. There's cedar apple rust, powdery mildew, apple scab, and fire blight. You do not want to see this on any of your plants. And powdery mildew is easily identified by white mycelium. Airborne spores infect plants at temperatures between 60 and 90. Temperatures above 90 inhibit fungal growth. Cool nighttime temperatures, high relative humidity, and succulent abundant growth favor development. Plants grown in heavy shade may be more susceptible to diseases. And then powdery mildew of fruit trees. Powdery mildew of apple occur in the apple-producing regions of the world. The disease causes economic damage by reducing tree vigor, flower bud production, and fruit quality. Infections on the blossom receptacle or of young fruit will cause net-like rustling and discoloration as the fruit matures. And that's what it would look like. Apple, there's dormant, silver tip, green tip, half an inch, tight cluster, pink bloom, petal, fall, and then fruit set. Rust diseases. Rust produce spots called pustules, which are similar in appearance to leaf spots. Spores can be brown, reddish brown, orange, or yellow. They have very complicated life cycles, often involving 2 separate hosts to compete in the life cycle. Twigs, branches, and fruit may also be attacked. And that's what cedar apple rust on an eastern red cedar would look like. Oh, looks gross. And then this is how it would affect. Can cause extensive defoliation of apple trees. Pears are susceptible to quince rust and hawthorn rust, but not to cedar apple rust. The fungus may also affect fruit and even succulent twigs of very susceptible apple varieties. Apple leaves 4 to 8 days old are the most susceptible. From July to September, the fungal spores from apple trees are carried by wind to eastern red cedar. And this is when you would want to treat it. When it's dormant, you smother it, and then you can use Immunox, and then petal fall for cedar apple rust, and then first to second cover spray, 2-week intervals. Fire blight, a bacterial disease of plants in that family, is spread by pruning insects and wind-blown rain. Affected leaves will remain attached, and a shepherd's hook bend in the twig may be noticed. Cankers and blighted shoots should be removed during the dormant season. The bacteria overwinter in the bark of the edges of cankers. And common host plants in that family: Bradford pear, crabapple, flowering almond, plum, and cherry, hawthorn, serviceberry, photinia, flowering quince, cotoneaster, percantha, rose, and spireas. And then fire blight, a bacterial disease that is very destructive to both apple and pear. Avoid pruning during and after the blossom period. Promptly prune out any blighted tissue. Remove infected plant parts by cutting 8 to 12 inches below disease or the canker tissue. Diagnostic features is a shepherd's crook symptoms on the stems and foliage with dieback of branches. And that's what that would look like right there. And then this is how you manage delayed dormant. When the buds swell, you can use dormant oil plus copper. And then use of copper is if a history of fire blight. And then bloom, you can use streptomycin. In the landscape, host plant hardwoods common on maple and dogwood. Active adults, this is a borer. Life cycle preparation occurs in the early spring to late summer, after which the adults chew D-shaped and oval-shaped holes in the bark to emerge. Flathead apple tree borer. This beetle attacks both apple and pear trees. The bark over infested areas often is dead and dark colored. Young trees can be girdled and killed, and larger trees can be seriously injured through the loss of large portions of bark. This borer can be very destructive of newly planted trees and trees stressed by drought, or other factors. And then this is, you can use permethrin or that one for managing the flathead apple tree borer, like a systemic. And that is some more disease on stone fruit. And then brown rot of peach. Brown rot is one of the most common and serious diseases of peach fruits, and can also infect flower blossoms and shoots. The disease begins at bloom, causing infected flowers to wilt and turn brown very quickly. Spores from infected flowers and cankers infect healthy green fruit during long wetness periods. Infected fruits remain attached to the tree and provide an additional source of spores for more infections. And this is how you can prevent it. Collect and remove diseased fruit from the tree as it appears. Collect and dispose of any diseased fruit on the ground. In the fall, remove all dried fruit mummies from the tree. And you can use Captain, or that one, or that one. Those are critical sprays for brown rot control. And that's what it would look like. Dormant, swollen bud, first blossom, post blossom, and then the shuck split. And here are a lot of pests. The adult peach tree borer is a clear-winged moth. Unlike other moths, these moths fly during the day, a major wood-boring pest of laurel shrubs. Treat in late May through mid-July with a trunk spray. And that's what it looks like. Peach tree borer of fruit trees. This native clear-winged moth primarily attacks peach, but it can survive on wild and cultivated cherry, plum, apricot, and nectarine. One of the first signs of attack is a mass of gum containing bits of wood chips, sawdust, and frass exuding out of the trunk base about 3 inches below to 1 foot above the soil surface. Young trees may be completely girdled by the larva feeding. This is only 1 generation per year. And that's how you manage the borer. You can use permethrin, and then the final application can be applied after harvest. And that brought us to the end of the class. So, like I said, I hope you have really enjoyed the Master Gardener series. This is week 10. We only have 2 more left. So I hope you're proud of yourself, and I've really enjoyed it, and I just can't wait to use all this knowledge and apply it in my garden. But I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.